You know, that's a real auspicious place to be in. It may not seem like it, but, well, according to collective mentality, they'll want to put you on some antidepressant if you tell them that you're so sick of yourself, you can't stand yourself anymore. Now, how is it possible one could feel that? And I'm not talking about if they have some imbalance in their chemistry or something, you know. I'm not talking about that. Everybody does, but that's not what I'm talking about. Something inside your awareness gets to where you see it's like your motives for everything you do, the way you act with people, everything, your whole life, it's like is just full of shit, basically. Something realizes that. Something comes into that knowing, and then you're like, oh God, you don't even want to go outside. You don't even want to talk to people anymore. You don't even want to look in their eye because you think they know what you know. You're like, God, I can't talk. They're going to know I'm full of it. You see, this is a bottom. This is the compost that can lead to a spiritual awakening. Because how are you going to have a spiritual awakening? What does it mean, spiritual awakening? You just recognize your true nature, which isn't personal. How can you have that, though? How can that happen if you're still there managing and running things? That's the whole thing. You can't. If the ego and the personal self is still there making moves and doing stuff, trying to get somewhere, even in the spiritual field, if it's trying to get to that spiritual awakening, you can be sure it's not going to happen. That's why a lot of these circles I'm not really into. Because it's the mind, it's the ego chasing the spiritual awakening and saying, look at me in the process. Spiritual I am. I got my white shirt on and my, spiritual necklace. Everybody. You see that? If you don't have some degree of suffering, I don't see really how you can. Didn't Buddha say, like, you got to suffer to wake up or something? Or life is suffering? But it takes, you got to be at a, this is ironic, you have to be at a certain level of consciousness in order to suffer. You see, people who are just kind of blissfully ignorant, they don't really suffer. They're just la-di-da, yeah, I'm doing my yoga and I'm this and that. And, they're not, they haven't hit that stage where I shared at the beginning of the video where we see ourselves. We see the ego. It's like something pulled the curtains over from the ego. It's like we see it now. Whereas before we didn't really see it. And it's hard to see because everybody's doing the same thing, basically. How can you see it? It's like the ego is hiding in plain sight because everyone's doing the same stuff. So you can't see it. Now in Golden Age, if we went to one of these spiritual circles, these people, like if the spiritual circle now went to the Golden Age spiritual circle, they'd feel different. If you're around, like, let's say the circle, let's say the average spiritual circle went to like Papaji and Muji and Ramana Maharshi, Nazargarada. Let's say all those guys were there, and then another spiritual circle went into their circle. You think they're going to be doing, you think there's not going to be, who's going to have a shift in consciousness? Is it going to be Muji and Papaji and all them? Or is it going to be the New Age spiritual circle? New Age spiritual circle, most of them would probably leave. They'd be like, I just remembered I got to go to this yoga class. I'll be back though. But those who stayed would get transformed. Because it's like when you're around that level of consciousness, that presence, they're like holding a mirror right up to you. Like, this is who you are. They're not even trying to do it. But that's what's happening. So you can't get away from yourself, your ego self. Which is really good if that's what you want. See, a real student and disciple, that's what they want. But they're rare. Even they say, yeah, that's what I want. They don't really want that. They don't want to be found out. They don't want to be like peeled back. Peel them like a grape. Like, this is what you're doing. Look at all that. It's like, whoa, it's too much. It's like, I'm not ready to have an ego death yet. Let me take it in smaller portions. You know? In life, the universe works like that. Evolution, you can't bite off more than you can chew anyway. Like, the universe won't let it happen. But there's some that really come into this. Eckhart, look at Eckhart Tolle. What was his words? He says, I cannot live with myself anymore. He had a lot of an emotional pain and depression. Depression was his thing. Because something inside was wanting to wake up, but he didn't have the auspicious surroundings. He wasn't born in a Brahmin family with the guru, and his parents were all already realized, so they couldn't facilitate that. He was going to a university, which was just more mind identity. And that was conflicting with this spiritual nature that wanted to combust. And so he just felt bad. And then finally, the spiritual nature won, and he was unconscious. He just went unconscious. He just fell unconscious because the blast was so strong. He couldn't stay present during it. It's like plant medicine. Same thing. Sometimes people, if they're not ready for an ego death, they go unconscious. You know, if they take too much ayahuasca or Sanpeja or. The good things about those medicines, they probably won't kill you unless you're already taking some kind of pharmaceutical drug and that that interacts, then you could die. But it's not like these natural plants. It's not like cocaine or heroin or something like that. Like, they'll kill you because there's no intelligence in there anymore. They've synthesized the spirit out of it. Whereas the natural plants, it's still the chemistry inside's harmonized. Spirit's still there. It won't kill you, you know. So, yeah, he couldn't take it anymore. He just could not live with this human ego anymore. It's just too much. It's just too much work. It's just heavy. It can't figure anything out. It keeps trying. Yeah, I got this problem and I'm working on it and I'm going to figure it out, and I want to have a spiritual awakening like the people that are talking about it all the time, and so I just really need to. I'm just going to meditate for, until I have the awakening. I'm not going to move, or I'm going to dry fast until I just come into spirit. That's mind. That's mind. Ego pretending like it's being very sincere and willing to go to any length, but it won't work. Yeah, there needs to be something willing to go to any length. But the length you go to isn't determined by your mind. The universe will decide for you what length you have to go to, what you do, what you don't do, everything. The mind and ego wants to help with everything, even the spiritual awakening, the spiritual field. And that is the main obstacle. It's the main obstruction. The mind and ego needs to take a back seat. Like a far back seat, like one of those vans that can hold 25 people. You want to be in the last row. I always like the last row. Then I can see everything in front of me. We want to put the ego and mind in that last row. And then our attention and consciousness wants to be with God in the driver's seat. It knows where it's going. But the ego will still be trying to give directions from the back. That's what it does. No, you just go over here. It's faster, man. Like, this is what the real spiritual people do. Just go over here. And then if my attention listens to that, I'll be like, yeah, God, just go over here, just real quick. I'll turn the steering wheel for it. Just this is okay. And God's cool. He'll do it. He'll go. It's like, all right, let's go check it out. All right. I think I said enough. That was fun. All right. Have a good day.